The transfer portal receiver market is heating up. Miami has just been linked to a familiar name who's available from an in-state rival. Also, an excellent player from Georgia State has just hit the transfer portal, and I believe the Hurricanes should get involved here.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On this loaded episode, we'll talk about Cam Ward's big moment coming up tonight. Spoiler alert, he's going to be the first overall pick to the Tennessee Titans later on this evening. It is draft day. We'll talk about a new linebacker that's on Miami's radar, a conference transfer from NC State. Could he find a home at the U? We've also got to talk about Jackson Cantwell, a little detour into recruiting because he's pushed back his date. Is that good news? Bad news for Miami is Cantwell, who was scheduled to announce on April 30th, is going to be pushing that back to May 13th. But we'll talk about receivers in the portal, safeties, some other positions. So I mentioned there's a new face who's hitting the transfer portal. Before we get to the familiar face from an in-state rival, let's talk about wide receiver Ted Hurst from Georgia State. Absolute standout player. I know Sun Belt, maybe he'll be looking to make the jump into the Power Four, but Ted Hurst seems like a guy who's going to make that transition pretty well. 6'4", long, big outside receiver with tremendous production this past year. Hauled in 961 receiving yards for Georgia State, 9 touchdowns last season, and he instantly becomes one of the top overall receivers now available in the transfer portal. Ted Hurst has a 4-star grade. I would probably say in terms of outside receivers, he may now be the top guy right now because obviously there's others, a guy like Trevor Pena, who Miami will be taking a look at later this week, who's in the slot, who's really highly graded, put up a lot of numbers at Syracuse last year. But in terms of outside receivers, Ted Hurst is looking like one of the top options out there. Now, he just announced last night that he was entering the transfer portal, so we don't see a whole lot yet about visits and targeted teams coming together. But if you do the math, we know Miami has been active and will be really active this week with multiple visits coming up in the receiver market, both with outside guys and with slot guys. And I feel that boundary receiver personally is probably the bigger need, right? So a guy like Ted Hurst at 6'4", nearly 1,000 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns scored last year, probably looking for an upgrade in the profile of program from Georgia State to, someone, whether it be SEC or Big Ten or ACC or Big 12, he's probably looking for a Power 4 destination. Ted Hurst is a guy that I would think Miami is going to get involved in here in the near future. Now, I want to remind people of something. I know you look at your calendars today. It's April 24th. You're thinking, well, hey, doesn't the portal close up tomorrow, April 25th? We better hurry up and sign some players, right? Miami is yet to make a signing here in the April portal. The April 25th deadline is just to file your paperwork and enter the portal for players. There is not a hard deadline on signing players into your program. In fact, even with the April 25th thing, you're going to have some players around the country who are going to make their decision tomorrow to file their paperwork, and the paperwork may not actually get finalized until Monday or Tuesday of next week. So you're still going to see names trickling into the portal for the next 4 or 5 days. And then, you can go well into May when it comes to actually signing players. So the April 25th, that's only a deadline to file your paperwork if you're a player. It is not a deadline to pick a landing spot. So Miami's portal shopping, which has been slow to this point, can definitely speed up and heat up still. And Ted Hurst out of Georgia State, I believe, is a name that we should know. Now, in terms of a familiar name, let me offer this disclaimer. I'm not necessarily saying go after this guy, but if you want to do your due diligence and you want to kick the tires, I'm totally cool with that. For those who have followed recruiting for the past several years, you're very familiar with the name Hykeem Williams, former 5-star class of 2023 wide receiver prospect out of Stranahan High School in Fort Lauderdale. Miami was very heavily involved in his recruitment. 6'2", 215 pounds. He ultimately chose out of high school to play for the Florida State Seminoles. Now, his Florida State career obviously has not gone very well to this point. Hykeem Williams entered the portal about a little over a week ago. Now, this according to Zach Blostein of the Florida State 24/7 site. Blostein is an FSU insider. He says, now I'm not hearing a whole lot of traction, at least not yet from the Miami side, but from the Florida State side, he reported that Hykeem Williams could visit Miami after his visit to Syracuse, which I think he's on now. Now, obviously, Syracuse has been very active looking for offensive playmakers. They lost a lot of their top guys from last season. They lost Trevor Pena, who was their second leading receiver, well, first in certain categories, second leading in yardage last year. They're projected to land Notre Dame quarterback Steve Angeli. They've got some crystal balls. So Syracuse, we know, is trying to revamp their offense. We also know, as I just talked about, Miami has been in the market for receivers. And, Hykeem Williams is a guy that was just a couple of years ago extremely highly rated coming out of high school. And it's somebody Mario Cristobal and Miami did recruit, okay? Now, Hykeem's career at Florida State was really slow. I mean, he was expected, I think, to play a much bigger role in their offense last season, only had 16 catches for 187 yards and 1 touchdown last year. But to be fair to Williams, we all watched Florida State's offense last year. Hykeem Williams was not the primary problem. They couldn't throw, they couldn't run, they couldn't block, they couldn't catch. They played quarterback musical chairs throughout the season. So, I mean, that was a disastrous offense. I don't think it would be fair to judge Hykeem Williams' career to this point too much based off of a lack of production last season because, I mean, who did produce in that FSU offense last year? So, if Florida State Insider says Hykeem could find a visit to Miami, I will definitely be monitoring that situation over the next couple of days. And guys, we know Miami is going to be a hotbed for posting receivers for visits in the coming days because the aforementioned Trevor Pena from Syracuse, who, if Miami does land Pena, is basically the heir apparent to Xavier Restrepo, slot receiver, some similar attributes. Restrepo was first team All ACC last year. Trevor Pena, second team All ACC. He was nipping at Restrepo's heels statistically all season last year. He's going to be on campus this week. Keelan Marion from BYU, good receiver, elite kick returner. He's going to be visiting as well. And another very good slot receiver out of Cincinnati, Tony Johnson, is going to be visiting this week as well. And hopefully Miami can add Ted Hurst to that list, and maybe Miami will add Hykeem Williams to that visitors list as well. So things are getting busy at receiver. I want to talk about safeties and linebackers when we come back. Plus, Jackson Cantwell, top recruit in America, is going to make us all sweat for 13 extra days. Why? We'll discuss next year on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, this is the season for FanDuel. Folks, the NBA playoffs are now in full swing, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Do not miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On NFL Draft. I mean, this is time to cram. You got the first round coming up tonight. We all know who the number one overall pick is going to be, but where are Miami's other draftable players like Elijah Arroyo, Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George, Tyler Barron, Simeon Barrow. I hopefully my guy Andy Borregales, who I believe should be drafted, but it's a little tricky sometimes with kickers. Where's Damian Martinez going to go? Check out Locked On NFL Draft, available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. All right, so we talked about the wide receiver market is heating up. So is the safety market. Now, Miami coaches had a meeting yesterday with the guy who I believe is and should be the top target at safety, and that's Houston's A.J. Haulcy, coming off a first-team All-Big 12 season last year. Plus, he was coached by Zach Etheridge, who's now a defensive backs coach at Miami. So you have the familiarity. Miami met with A.J. Haulcy yesterday. The details on that are scarce, but the feedback that we are getting that's like leaking through seems to be very positive, and hopefully Miami can be the team that ends up trending up all the way up with A.J. Haulcy, because we talked about it yesterday with Larry Bluestein. That guy is a missing piece, maybe the missing piece for Miami's defense. We feel very good about Zechariah Poyser being a starter. We feel okay about some of Miami's depth, like Dylan Day had a good spring. Markeith Williams had a good spring. Miami lost Zaquan Patterson, which is unfortunate because I'm still a big fan of Zaquan, who's considering Ole Miss and Florida. God, I hope he picks Ole Miss, because the Florida folks are going to troll me if he ends up a Gator. So let's go Lane for Zaquan Patterson. So Miami, I believe, could be looking for multiple safeties. Like if the Hurricanes are fortunate enough to land A.J. Haulcy, who I believe is the best available, because remember, a lot of the other safeties that Miami is looking at are young, 3-4 years of eligibility left, which is fine. Get guys you can develop, okay. But in terms of someone who can plug and play this year, I believe A.J. Haulcy is the guy. But when it comes to some of those developmental players, Miami will be hosting. In fact, they are hosting today a name we've talked about a lot here, former Florida Gator Gregory Smith III, safety with 4 years of eligibility remaining. You remember he announced he was hitting the portal, then he walked it back, then he ended up, formally hitting the transfer portal. And Gregory Smith III, from the part of Florida he's in, I think he's close with the Armwood guys on Miami's roster, Gerard Pringle and Kellen Wiley. Miami has the verbal commitment from Jalen Seatbelt Waters from Armwood. I think he's close with those guys. And he's also, most importantly, Greg Smith, he's close with Miami safeties coach Will Harris, who was his primary recruiter coming out of high school. Gregory Smith, you love the size, you love the building blocks there. 6'4", about 215 pounds. He had 3 solo tackles, a pass breakup, just 5 games played last year. I think he was able to preserve the red shirt. I don't know how he with 5 games, but I heard he was able to preserve the red shirt. So he's got 4 years of eligibility remaining, Greg Smith. And let's see. So Miami, we talked about linebackers as well. The Hurricanes are interested in North Carolina State linebacker Kamal Bonner, who's a young player. He's got 3 years of eligibility left. And, Bonner, who's, Wolf, I did ask my guy Kenton Gibbs about Bonner. I'll talk about that in a second. But Kamal Bonner did announce he's going to be visiting. His agents actually announced he's going to be visiting Miami Thursday through Saturday. So a multi-visit coming up. Last season, he ended up becoming a starter mid-year because of an injury to Caden Fordham. North Carolina State's linebacker core had a lot of injuries last year. So Bonner, young player, redshirt freshman, ended up stepping into a starting role. He finished with 56 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and a sack. He played both Will and Mike. So you could be, if you do end up landing Kamal Bonner, you would be landing a guy who's got positional versatility at linebacker. And linebacker's a spot Miami could use more depth in, right? I mean, the Wesley Basaint is the experienced guy. You have some younger guys or lesser experienced guys. We believe Popo Aguirre is ready to step up and play a bigger role, potentially being the starting Mike linebacker this year. Chase Smith also had a very good spring. I'm a huge fan of Cameron Bobby Pruitt, as you guys all know, but Miami could use more proven depth at linebacker. And Bonner, I guess you could call him proven. Again, he did play the final 7 games as a starter. And, I asked my guy Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack about him, and he said it's very good going downhill. He said in coverage was meh last year. So it seems to be something he has to work on. But Kenton did mention to me that he did get better as he got more seasoned throughout the year, because it was one of those baptism by fire situations. Like, he wasn't supposed to start, got thrust into a starting role, and seemed to improve as the season went on. So Kamal Bonner is someone to look at, linebacker out of NC State. Now, you guys know the linebacker that I really want, and hopefully we see some movement towards a visit here, is Harrison Taggart out of BYU. That's the best middle linebacker available, and he does have a connection with Mario Cristobal. Cristobal recruited him to Oregon out of high school. So you have the relationship already built in there. And, obviously, if you're looking at linebackers, that would be the same way. I believe A.J. Haulcy is the best safety available. Harrison Taggart out of BYU, I believe, is the best linebacker available. Miami fans, and I would also say Oregon fans, were freaking out yesterday when top recruit Jackson Cantwell, 2026 5-star offensive tackle, who had for the last 2 weeks or so had planned to announce a verbal commitment on April 30th, with Oregon, Miami, and Georgia being the top 3 trending there. Ohio State and Michigan also in the mix, or at least trying to get into the mix. And so, before he moved the date or he announced the date of April 30th, we were thinking Miami could be in a really good spot to get like maybe a mid-April commitment. But then he set the April 30th date, and he said an Oregon visit right before April 30th. He's going to be in Oregon this weekend. And so Oregon fans then were thinking, okay, he's going to be announcing right after he visits Eugene. This is a lock for landing. It's a landing lock, they were saying. But then last night, Jackson Cantwell, and listen, I respect his process, guys. Like, this is his decision. It's not my decision. It's not any of your decisions. I mean, let Jackson go through his process, but he announced he's pushing his date back to May 13th. And he's also adding an unofficial visit to Georgia right before May 13th. So the Oregon fans are like, wait, another visit, and he's pushing it back. And Miami fans are like, what about us? And then the Georgia fans are getting all cocky. Now, when you're talking about number 1 player in the class, 5-star, you can only imagine what sort of things coaches are talking to him about. And, when he gets on the phone with the NIL collectives, what sort of stuff they're talking with him about. So, I always proceed with caution when we're talking about number 1 player in the class. I mean, we all remember how crazy the Jeremiah Smith saga was last year, like how close Miami fans thought they got to landing him before he stuck with Ohio State. So recruiting is crazy, especially when you're talking about the top player. But I will continue to stress this, because I talk to a lot of folks every single day about Jackson Cantwell. His name comes up a lot in conversations that I have, and we still should have every reason to feel very good about Miami's recruitment of Cantwell, that the Hurricanes have been probably the overall best and most consistent team when it comes to recruiting him. And he really, really respects, because the most important factor for Cantwell, I know some people will say, well, he wants an elite track team. The Oregon fans will say that. I mean, listen, does he want to keep throwing stuff, track and field? Sure. But the most important factor in Cantwell's decision is knowing he's going to get developed right into a first-round NFL draft pick. And that's an area where, from an offensive line point of view, with Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal, and Miami being the only team among his finalists where the head coach is an offensive line guy, that's something we're very confident in Miami's pitch. And Cantwell has said he feels Miami has the best offensive line coaching in the country. So we still, despite the juggling of dates and moving things around, we still feel confident in where Miami stands in the Jackson Cantwell recruitment. I would think even at this point, on this day, April 24th, year of our Lord 2025, we can still consider Miami to be the favorite here. But I will stress, with the weekend visit to Oregon coming up and then a visit to Georgia coming up, I hope Mario Cristobal can get more FaceTime with Cantwell before that May 13th announcement. Things can always change. And this is not me riding the fence or copping out on this. I'm telling it like it is. I feel very good today about where Miami stands, but things can always change when it comes to five-star recruitment. So don't sweat too much, but I give you permission to sweat a little bit. And instead of finding out on April 30th, we're going to have to find out on May 13th, which means I've got to schedule another vacation, because usually, like, if I go on vacation somewhere, it's a lock. If I'm home in my headquarters, then it could get a little iffy. So that's the latest on Jackson Cantwell. Coming up next tonight, I'm not only going to feel very good for Cam Ward, but I'm going to feel so good for his family, for the sacrifices that they've put in to get to this moment tonight in Green Bay. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on Locked on Canes. Oh, I'm certainly not done yet with Amazon Fire TV. I had the wrong screen up there. But you know what? I'm always in the right place when I'm playing my Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite TV shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Guys, with Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and auto low latency mode advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds that you need to stay competitive. And yeah, guys, you get that 4K streaming, and you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and so much more. Guys, I'm not a hardcore gamer, but I love me some EA 25, and I love me some EA FC. I'm a big soccer guy as well, and I have a blast playing this stuff on my Fire TV. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Thank you for making Locked on Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm so glad that folks out there over the last couple of days have started to give shout outs, not only to Cam Ward, who's, again, he's about to be the first overall draft pick. The Tennessee Titans have admitted that they're going to use that first pick, that they are no longer shopping potential trades to trade down in the draft and let someone else earn the rights to draft Cam Ward. Ward is going to be a Tennessee Titan several hours from now. And I'm so glad that folks have started to really put the spotlight not only on Cam Ward, but on his parents. I can't emphasize this enough. Calvin and Patrice Ward are special, special people. I have had the opportunity over the past year not only to be able to cover and get to know Cam a little bit, but to really get to know his parents. And you talk about dedication, like, they live in Texas, but they come down just about every practice. They were down about a month back for Cam's pro day at Miami. In fact, I saw Cam's parents at a Miami practice that Cam wasn't even at. Like, his parents love the program, such a special bond. And it's one of those things where, and I know, like, in this day and age, sometimes even college players, you only get to cover people for 1 year because players come and go, they portal in and out and all that. Like Cam Ward was only a Miami Hurricane for about 11 months, 11 and a half months, from January of 2023 to late December of 2024. But you talk about a guy that completely immersed himself in the culture, immersed himself in football, and really immersed his entire family in the University of Miami. He was only here for 11 and a half months. It feels like he was here for 3 or 4 years. And you talk about great parenting, to be able to, nurture your child and encourage the hard work and instill the type of values that a guy like Ward needs to have to get to this level of life and athletics. I'm glad that Calvin and Patrice Ward are getting the recognition that they deserve, because it takes a village to be able to raise an amazing human being that Cam Ward is. And I'm hoping he has an awesome NFL career coming up. And, as far as tonight goes, I think Ward, I hope I'm wrong, knock on wood, but I think he's going to be the only Miami Hurricane that gets his name called tonight in round 1. But, when you come up to day 2, you could expect Elijah Arroyo, Xavier Restrepo, probably Damian Martinez. I'd like to see, I know Tyler Barron, because of his physical attributes. I know he was a little bit inconsistent last year. He did play through some injuries, but he's maybe a guy that could go day 2. There are some other ones, Simeon Barrow, probably day 3, but I think he probably deserves better. He was snubbed from some of the postseason stuff. Jacoby George is a guy that I hope gets drafted day 2, probably day 3. Andy Borregales, who, he is an NFL kicker, I believe. I know his brother Jose has obviously had a hard time kind of breaking into that fraternity, because there's only 32 of those jobs, right? Teams don't carry multiple kickers in the NFL, and you can kick for a long time. So it's a hard fraternity to break into. But I do believe Andy Borregales is one of the 32 best kickers in the world, and I hope he finds himself an NFL job as well. So yeah, the NFL draft is going to be special. And, we'll do some stuff reacting to tonight, especially with Ward is going to go number 1 overall. So we'll have a reaction to that this evening. I'm also going to be popping into some other shows, draft events. Like there's a Tennessee Titans show that's had me on a couple times. They're going to have me on for a little bit right after Cam Ward gets drafted tonight. So I will be around, and I would love to celebrate Cam Ward's big moment, because again, he's someone, when it comes to his escapability and athleticism, the arm talent, can make every single throw, the dedication, the football IQ, the leadership. I believe Cam Ward is going to be a great professional quarterback, and his journey in the NFL is going to start this evening. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the audio version, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Subscribe to the video version on YouTube, and we will talk to you guys again on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.